Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsyreplays. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to look at four tanks, just four tanks that used to be OP. Yes, we were supposed to make it 5 tanks, but one of the tanks that I was going to add, I decided not to add because I've been trying to play it to get footage, and honestly, I know a lot of it will be me, but I just gave up. I just gave up because I'm not loving it. I really ain't loving it. And that 5th tank was actually the T-54, because I'll still add it in the list, because the T-54, back when I first started, was the tank that everybody wanted. Everybody wanted the T-54. It was known as the Heat 54 back then, because you just run around with heat and you'd be able to pen everybody. Literally, run around with heat, pen everybody, and it used to be insane. It was one of those tanks that just everybody wanted, the tier 9 tank that everybody wanted. It was OP. The next tank which we are playing here is the Lux. The Lux, oh my god, when this tank was first released, it was broken beyond words. Honestly, like, we had thousands of battles in this tank because of how fun the tank used to be. It used to be insane. Honestly, it was crazy. Absolutely a crazy tank. Obviously it's not crazy now. It's nowhere near as crazy, and it's not even nowhere near OP, but you can see it has 2 shells that fires 2 shells. It used to have 5 shells that fired 2 shells each, so it used to have 10 shells. I think it was 10 shells. It might have been 8, but I think it was 10. It was honestly, you used 2 of these in a platoon and you could destroy absolutely anybody with 1 magazine with your toon mate. So 1 magazine for you, 1 magazine for your toon mate, and it was game over for them. And yeah, Amaraks as well. If you hit the same place over and over again, obviously with the 10 shells, yeah, Matildas were prone to be Amaraked a lot from this tank, but even against tier 5s, you know, you switch to the premium rounds and you used to be able to get through them no problem whatsoever. So the Lux was one of my favorite tanks back in the game. It's still one of my all-time most played tanks, just because of how fun it was in a platoon. But yeah, I miss the Lux days. I really do. But moving onwards and upwards, tank number 2 or 3. So when this one was first released, the Chariot Wargaming released a new line, a new British tank destroyer line, and the Chariot, and it's all about Hesh. You know, it's not often excuse me, it's not often we see Hesh other than the tier 10, you know, the FV215, the FV215B183 and the FV4202, and of course the Centurion 7-1. And then they released this tech tree line, and the Charioteer, you've got the FV4005, you've got the Conway has Hesh, and then this tank has Hesh as well. Where you can see right now that the reload is 8.5 seconds, it was about 6 seconds. Honestly, it was about 6 seconds, and it had the exact same gun, exact same reload, exact same DPM as the FV4202. Now, the difference is the FV4202 is a tier 10 medium tank. This is a tier 8 tank destroyer that had the same penetration, everything. It had the same gun as a tier 10 tank, and honestly, it was crazy. It really was crazy. Wargaming was soon going to rectify that by sort of reducing a certain few things. One of those was the reload. So the reload took a hit. But still, even to this day, the tank is still a good tank. It's a fun tank, and of course it is fun because of that Hesh. If it didn't have that Hesh, I think it would be a kind of sort of meh. It wouldn't be bad, but it would be not as half enjoyable as it is now. Now, of course, on top of that, it's got that special reload boost. Now, the special reload boost makes this tank as well, because of the speed. You need that reload boost quite often, to be fair, and I just wish the tank was that speed all the time. If the tank was the speed that you use, or that you go with that reload boost all the time, then I definitely think it would be a much better tank. But it is still enjoyable. It's still a enjoyable tank, but you have to use that hesh. If you don't use that hesh, it's not half as fun. Doing 400 to 500 damage per shot is definitely fun. 450 there every sort of 7-8 seconds. So yeah, it's still fun, but nowhere near as fun as it once was. Moving on to the final tank on this list. Now, this isn't actually the final tank, I lied. There's one more tank after this, but the VK100. Now, where I do videos of the top 5 most OP tanks in the game, when this one was first released, that was in there. That was in my video. Go back and watch it. It was in there in my most OP tanks in the game because it was broken. Now, again, the armor profile on this thing isn't as good as it once was, but it was too broken, like really broken. You've got the hatch on top now, which is really weak. Yeah, it didn't used to be weak. It didn't used to be weak. You didn't used to be able to penetrate that hatch. So even though the middle plate is, I think, still the same, where players can penetrate that, I think that even maybe got made weaker as well. But where you've got that middle plate that can be penetrated and the hatch that can be penetrated, nobody could penetrate that hatch. So if you hide your middle plate, which is quite easy because it's quite a tall tank as well, all you got to do is sit behind a rock or sit behind a dead tank and you'd be able to get your shot off, and nobody, absolutely nobody, would be able to penetrate you. Of course, things change. Not many people enjoy the tank now. It hasn't got that armor profile. It is kind of a meh tank. It can perform really well with the, of course, with the big gun it's got, especially when you bounce shots like that. But yeah, it's nowhere near as fun as the tank was when it first come out. But a lot of you probably don't know it. But yeah, this tank used to be OP. Now, moving on to the final tank on the list. Now, this tank was a Seal Clubber's dream. We speak about the Lux, how insane the Lux was, and it was no different really for the A20. The A20 had an autoloader, which Wargaming removed because autoloaders back in these lower tiers were just too crazy, and Wargaming actually removed a lot of these tanks' autoloaders roughly at the same time. I think the Lux got nerfed a lot before these guys got their autoloaders removed. But yeah, there were a few tanks out there that were autoloaders. The T46, I think, was absolutely insane for a tier 3 tank, and then they just sort of reduced that autoloader, and the A20 was, like I said, an absolute Seal Clubber's dream. It's a light tank, it had the speed, it had a crazy autoloader as well, and a lot of people did used to just play the A20, not because it was fun. It was fun, yeah, but they used to play the A20 just for one purpose alone, and that was win rate. That is a lot. People out there have thousands and thousands and thousands. I know a player that has over 20,000 battles just in this tank alone, which is absolutely crazy. Still not a bad tank. I don't play it. Obviously, this is the first time I played the A20 in a very long time, but it's still a good tank, but just nowhere near as good as it once was. It had that armor profile as well, especially against the lower tiers, where you used to be able to bounce quite a few shots. Even here, like, I bounced 360 now, 450. So yeah, I bounced almost my entire hit points. So yeah, it is still a tank that is capable of doing damage and winning games, but nowhere near as it once was. So let me know in the comments below, did you used to play any of these tanks when they were absolutely overpowered? Hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. I'm meadsy69, and I will catch you all soon. Bye bye.